Good evening, everyone. Can you please take your seats? Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the meeting. Joe, could you read out the emergency evacuation, please? If the continuous alarm sounds, you must evacuate the building and proceed to the assembly point. From this room, you follow the green running person signs to the exit, using either the marble staircase at the end of the building nearest to Bath Abbey or the main staircase. Please do not use the lifts. The assembly point for this building is in Orange Grove on the green outside Browns. There is an evacuation chair for use by disabled people who so wish in the corridor outside the Council Chamber Public Gallery. Alternatively, the area at the top of the marble staircase has been designated as a safe refuge where persons needing assistance should assemble. Thank you. Thank you. Have you got any apologies for absence? Yes, I have. I've had apologies from councillors Dave Biddleston, Alan Hale, Lucy Hodge, Grant Johnson, George Tomlin, Sean Stevenson-McGall, Joanna Wright, Alison Bourne, Deborah Collins, Fiona Gawley and Matt McCabe. Thank you. Next item is the minutes from the 25th of May and the 15th of June. Sorry. Any declarations of interest? I've had a couple announced to me which I'm passing on. Councillors Joel Hurst and Ollie Henman have declared a disclosable pecuniary interest in item 10 and will withdraw from the meeting and not take part in the debate or vote on that item. Are there any more to be announced? Okay, thank you. Okay. Now we're on to the minutes of the meetings of the 25th of May and the 15th of June. Do you want to take them individually? Yeah. Can somebody, Eleanor?
Is that correct, Chair?
Correct, thank you. And seconder? Kevin, thank you. Everybody in favour? Thank you. Announcements from the Chair. I'm pleased to announce that 7 parks and green spaces managed by Bath and North East Somerset Council have been awarded the prestigious Green Flag Award for being welcoming places that are safe and secure, clean and well maintained and fulfil sustainable and conservation requirements. So that's a brilliant accolade for our parks and team basically, so well done to all involved. There is no urgent business that I've been made aware of. Next item is for noting only, and that's the notification of members elected on the 22nd of June 2023. Okay, now we're on to the items, public speakers. So I'd like to call on Debbie Andrews first, please.
In comparison to many problems, seagull complaints might be deemed inconsequential. However, in the last few years, there have been an increasing number of gull incidents. A friend walking through Oldfield Park was attacked and blood drawn. An Oldfield Park community group warning about attacking gulls. Visitors' meals taken off plates in Kingsmead Square. These visitors have vowed never to eat outside in Bath again. An elderly man losing bread from his trolley in Lidl car park. These are just some incidents, as well as the numerous accounts of seagulls defecating on residents and tourists. I was attacked recently walking out of M&S with unopened food. As I was putting it in my bag, I felt a heavy thud on my back. I only realised what it was when a wing hit me across the head and the bird actually bent over my shoulder to peck through the plastic and managed a bite out of the food. 2 women checked I was okay as it was such a vicious attack. I went back in store to report it, but the manageress seemed resigned to accepting this as normal behaviour. Friends have boycotted many outdoor cafes as the girls are becoming more confident, and of course the chicks are learning from these increasingly violent attacks. Many people may suffer these events, decide not to eat outside or go home to the peace and quiet of their homes. And here lies the crux of the problem for me. There is no peace as the gull problem in many Oldfield Park streets has become intolerable. For the last 4 years I've had gulls around me at the back and front of the house, so there really is no escape. I spent money on my garden when I retired, but we don't eat outside as the gulls gather. Gardening is a mind-over-matter fight to block out the noise, which hardly makes it the relaxing retirement treat it should be. The mess on my car, my patio and furniture is disgusting, and I risk having to wash laundry again if I dare to hang washing outside. The intense heat last summer was horrendous, as we had to keep windows closed due to the unrelenting noise. As my husband and I have both been diagnosed with conditions that mean sleep is extremely important, this affected both our physical and mental well-being. We thought the situation was going to improve due to the excellent effort of Gordon Dugan, Worcester Gull officer. Indeed, he did manage to remove the chicks from one of the rooftops due to a disturbing undisclosed incident. The roof next door has also escaped this year as builders were fitting a loft conversion which deterred returning gulls. However, the irony is that the dormer will provide another haven next year. The situation in Oldfield Park is exacerbated by the amount of HMOs. The landlords don't live with the gull problems and, as in the case of a particularly problematic nest, the landlord has so far refused to engage with Gordon or myself. Why is there not a stipulation that it has to be gull deterrents integrated into planning permission? Why do landlords again get away with taking little responsibility for the houses they rent out? It's infuriating to know that funding has been withdrawn from trying to solve this problem. I'd like to know why. When will funds be released to help a problem that is only going to get worse? You cannot simply dismiss the concerns of permanent residents of Oldfield Park, so that it becomes a permanent gull retreat. Thank you.
Thank you for your statement. I'm just going to check with Denise if there's any questions. Councillor Guy?
Thank you, but no factual questions.
Councillor Ross?
Thank you for the statement and highlighting the issue, but no factual questions.
Thank you. Can I defer to Councillor Player, please?
Thank you. Thank you, Debbie. Would you like the Council to petition Natural England on behalf of residents to allow egg and nest removal to be reinstated?
Yes, absolutely. I want the chicks to be taken to a more appropriate place.
Thank you.
Councillor Tim Warren?
Yeah, thank you. The council used to remove eggs a few years ago. You noticed a big increase since that stopped?
There's definitely an increase, and because of the configuration of of the roads around my house, I live in a sort of bowl, so the gulls echo around. The only piece I've had this year is because Gordon had a license to remove the gulls, the chicks rather, because they had caused such a terrible problem for the family living there. I don't know what that problem was, but apparently it was quite an upsetting event.
Thank you. Anyone from the Green Group?
No further questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Adam Reynolds?
I'm here as a member of Walk Right Bath, but also as a resident of Timsbury. So there are two concerns I want to make the Council aware of tonight. The first one is the Somer Valley Links consultation, which is haveyourwest.co.uk, that ends on the 8th of August, proposes that all cycle traffic from Hallertrow, Poulton, Midsummer Norton, Radstock, Peacedown St John should be funnelled into Bath using the two tunnels via the Wellow to Midford permissive path. This privately owned path is an isolated, heavily cratered, bound gravel path that is a muddy mess and extremely dangerous after dark. At most, this is a poor leisure route. I would strongly urge all North East Somerset councillors to attend the consultation events and push for a much safer 3-metre wide shared path along the A367 between Radstock and the Bath Odd Down Park and Ride site. Making the A367 good for walking, wheeling and cycling is critical and also serves the residents of Marksbury, Timsbury, Preston, Tunley, Camerton, Carlingcott and probably lots of other areas to the east, to the west. Following the residents of North East Somerset that choose to use a sustainable mode of travel via a muddy, isolated, dangerously privately owned farm track is frankly completely nonsensical. And on to concern number 2. At the Cabinet meeting last week, 2 single-member decisions were taken to proceed with the Mount Road and Temple Cloud livable neighbourhoods. Councillors should be made aware that both decisions have the following paragraph: to note that the proposed shortlist was next subject to technical review, both in terms of alignment with livable neighbourhood strategy and other factors such as cost, practicalities and timelines, as summarised in Appendix B of the report. It should also be noted that the Mount Road decision explicitly states that, for clarity, the proposed scheme contains no modal filters at either end of Mount Road. Reading the list of measures on both schemes, I could not identify a single intervention that would be classified as a traffic reduction measure and fundable through WECA's Sustainable Transport Settlement Programme. I'm guessing the Council will end up spending funds from its own coffers, and other awards will lose out on road safety measures while Temple Cloud gets new benches for its playing field. My big concern here is not about the money. My concern is about wasting precious officer time. If the Cabinet wants to waste officer time on procuring and installing benches rather than running hugely transformative modal filter trials like Church Lane, Southlands and Queen Charlton, then that is on them. But you will not deliver on your Livable Neighbourhoods Manifesto commitments. It would be much better to create a phased delivery where ward councils help trial and install traffic reduction interventions and only then are able to bid for other types of interventions. Councillors need to recognise that the fast-track livable neighbourhoods trials focused on traffic reduction measures have quite frankly been a huge success and should be replicated again and again over the coming 3 years. You really do not have the luxury to waste limited officer time installing benches while having fights with Dan Norris over who is going to pay for all of this stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Guy, any factual questions?
Thank you, Adam, but no factual questions.
Councillor Moss?
Thanks for the statement, but no factual questions.
Councillor Hughes?
Yes, thank you for your statement, but no factual questions.
Councillor Tim Warren?
No, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Could you please give us some examples of effective traffic reduction measures and their estimated costs?
I can only go off the ACOM reports on some of the things I don't know
It's
the
not actually a factual question based on the statement.
Okay.
It's factual questions only.
No.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Chad Allen?
English ivy. I go here, I go there, I go everywhere. English ivy grows. It is a parasite that has remained for many years. It can destroy your trees, destroy your houses and your walls. It can make your house structurally unstable and make you having to sell your house at a lesser value. The stems on an ivy, when it grows up a tree, it ejects tiny little spores that can eat into the bark, that can then soak all the nutrients out of the bark in the tree and feed itself. Once the tree comes down, it moves along to the next, thus bringing down all the trees around. If you travel on a bus, train, cycle or walk, have a look at the tree line. Can you see the stems of a tree? If not, it has English ivy. Hydra helix is the fancy name. Now, for photosynthesis to work 100%, you need the English ivy off the trees so the bark can soak up the carbon dioxide and produce air. Once English ivy grows up a building, a little bit like Oldfield School, this will do a lot of damage to the building and produce damp and condensation into the building. It will eat out the mortar and cause a lot of damage. It's easier to take it off now and get rid of it now than it is later on. It costs people a lot of time and money and tuition fees, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, everybody needs to wake up and see the reality behind all the lies. The RHS and many other companies lie to you about control and fear. I do not believe in fear from the RHS, as they cannot control me. I stand free and remove as much IV as I can. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Bay, any factual questions?
Thank you, Chair, for your statement, but no factual questions.
Thank you.
Councillor Moss?
Thanks for the statement, but no factual questions.
Thank you.
Councillor Hughes?
Thank you for your statement, but no factual questions.
Councillor Warren?
Yeah, no factual questions, thank you.
Councillor Ross?
Thank you, but no factual questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warren.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Natalie Barnett.
Hi, my name is Natalie and I'm a mum of two and a trustee for Bath and North East Somerset Climate Hub. We are a registered charity that wants to bring people together for the planet. Our aim is to regenerate the earth for future generations. I'm here today to explain why Bath needs a climate hub. What we are asking for is a physical space on Bath High Street that would act as a community meeting place for people and organisations to discuss the environment and take action. Here are the key reasons why a climate hub is essential. We are in a climate crisis. As you know, Baines declared a climate emergency. Fast forward 4 years and the need for change and action is even greater. You guys are already a national leader in climate action, so let's keep this momentum going. Your manifesto expressed your desire to support the creation of a vibrant climate emergency centre. We share this aim. We want to bring people together and increase awareness, educate and support positive actions. Our climate hub will be an educational centre that will provide people with information, guidance, signposting, support and encouragement to help them change their behaviours. We'll be a welcoming place that will answer questions from the community and provide inspiration as we work towards a low-carbon future. We have nearly 3 years' experience running outreach in Kingsmead Square and New Bond Street and other locations, and we have evidence of our public interactions over a range of climate topics with the public. Not only will we be there for individuals, but we're already here to support organisations and business navigate the climate crisis. We have multiple working links with other organisations, and we can give environmental groups a much-needed physical space. The second reason Bath needs a climate hub is to establish a community place where people can come and connect and adapt to the changes that we have to face. We will make a welcoming and inclusive space centrally in the city. The climate crisis brings up lots of feelings of eco-anxiety in many people, and a physical space would be a safe place to explore and work through those feelings. The climate hub would offer human connection, information and positive action. An established long-term space creates more opportunities for more people and organisations to engage positively in the climate emergency. And lastly is high street regeneration. Bath needs more community spaces. A thriving high street isn't all corporations and coffee shops. We need creativity and diversity to keep our high street vibrant. We need spaces that foster community, information sharing and behavioural change. The Climate Hub will increase footfall and therefore revenue to the high street, creating interest in the centre of the city. In summary, a Climate Hub will regenerate the high street, establish a community space and directly tackle the climate crisis. Please consider continuing your amazing efforts to tackle the climate emergency by supporting us with the physical space in Bath City Centre. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Councillor Guy, any factual questions?
Thank you very much. That very rarely happens. You have a very interesting statement. Would you be willing to meet one of my Cabinet members to discuss the idea further?
Absolutely, that would be fantastic.
Brilliant, thank you.
Councillor Moss?
Defer to Liz Harbin.
Hi, many thanks indeed for your speech. But do you think this hub is needed for your group to function? Surely there are lots of other community spaces that could be used.
We believe that having a long-term established hub will have somewhere for people to go and people to signpost, so that if we're having someone has a question about the climate emergency, that someone will go, oh, there's a hub in Bath that I know of, and if you have any questions, we can go there. We'll have a space that we can know that we can run events from. We're currently doing pop-ups. We've had pop-ups in New Bond Street and pop-ups in Kingsmead Square and Keynsham Eco Festival, and it's great to have that short time to engage with the public. But if we have that physical hub space, it will just be a constant, sharing of information and a place that we can create change.
Councillor Hughes?
Thank you. Yes, I was just wondering, do you have any plans to expand into the North East Somerset part of Bath and North East Somerset?
Yes, so our name is Climate Hub Bath and North East Somerset. So our hope is to establish a thriving hub in Bath as a blueprint and then spread out to the other surrounding towns like Midsummer Norton and Keynsham and Radstock. So eventually, hopefully, every high street will have a climate hub.
Councillor Warren?
No, but thank you very much. Well, no questions. I was going to ask the same as Sean, actually.
Councillor Heltis?
Thank you. How many people have you reached so far, you think?
We've engaged with thousands of people and had lots of positive interactions over 30 plus pop-ups. We've got working relationships with over 30 businesses, and I just really feel that if we have that physical space, we'll just be able to reach, thousands more people.
Thank you very much. Lee Samways?
Hello, my name is Lee Samways. I am the co-owner of Francis DIY and a representative of Moreland Road Traders Association this evening. I'm here to share with you my thoughts and concerns about the new parking scheme that's been introduced to the Westmoreland, Oldfield and Westmoreland area. Many of us have been talking to the council about this issue for quite some time. Certainly at the initial consultation it felt the concerns of the retailers, businesses and institutions were being ignored. However, I would like to acknowledge the efforts that the Council and Liverpool Neighbourhoods team have made in more recent weeks to further engage with us. And changes have been made as a result, so we do appreciate that. But, of course, none of us know how these changes and the scheme itself will impact us until it becomes live. We still have much concern that the proposed residence parking zone will negatively impact on our business and other local businesses and institutions in the area. None of us object to the idea that controls need to be brought about to improve parking for residents, but this should be done in a way that allows our communities and shops and institutions to thrive. Oldfield Park is unique. It has a mix of many local independent businesses, coupled with a thriving community spirit, makes Moreland Road a hive of activity, an important meeting point for people of all ages. My message to you really is thank you for talking to us over the last few weeks. Please, please don't stop talking to us. Please keep communicating. Please keep us involved. The risk to us and the local community is too high, and if this goes wrong, far from improving things, it could destroy our vibrant community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Guy, any factual questions?
Thank you very much for your statement. There are no factual questions.
Okay.
Councillor Moss?
Yes, thank you for the statement, but no factual questions.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. Can I defer to Councillor Blackburn, please?
Thank you, Lee, for your statement. The signs for the RPZ have now gone up, warning people of the permit holder only bays. This is 6 weeks before the scheme starts. Do you feel this will have a detrimental effect on Moorland Road and the other community assets whilst you're trying to prepare for the official introduction of the RPZ?
Yes, it's confused customers. People already think that they can't come and park in our area, so it's already going to have an impact. We have people actually saying, "Oh, we can't come to you anymore." We have a delivery service. Our business has a delivery service, but there's only so much that we can deliver, and lots of people do like to come to us for bulkier items, and they need to be able to park.
Councillor Warren.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you for coming and speaking.
Thank you.
Do you think this could finish your business?
I hope that it won't, obviously. It's yet to be known. I feel that there are businesses that it will, and I would hate to see gaps on the high street. And that, because we all feed off of one another, and the community, everybody likes to shop in Moorland Road, they go for a coffee there, they might go to the local pub, the churches, the GP surgery. It's really got everything, and it's something that is, in the centre of Bath. It's not, we don't really have that anymore, I don't feel, and so it is a very special to all of us. And I think we need to try and keep it alive.
Thank you. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, but no factual questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Andrew Dawes.
Good evening, my name is Andrew Dawes and I'm the Operations Manager of St Bart's Church and Community Centre, plus I'm a committee member of the Oldfield Park and Westmoreland Community Alliance. I'm here to present a petition that the Alliance produced asking Oldfield Park residents to support our call for the Council to rethink their original plans for a residents' parking zone in the area. I'm pleased to say that the Council have engaged with us over the matter and made some improvements to the original scheme. However, this is an ongoing issue and I would encourage the Council to continue working with us and not assume it is yet resolved. This petition was created to demonstrate the strength of feeling and opposition to the Council's original scheme, which was ill thought out and overlooked the needs of the community. When we raised our concerns, we were told that residents wanted the proposed scheme. That was misleading. Residents undoubtedly wanted some form of controls, and so do we. The number of residents expressing wish for parking controls does not give this Council a mandate to implement and justify any version of a scheme that you wish. What was needed here wasn't a residents' parking zone, but a community parking zone, one that improves parking for residents but ensures the long-time viability of a large number of community institutions. Oldfield and Westmoreland are different from other zones the Council has introduced schemes in. In addition to houses, it hosts not only a much-loved high street, which you've heard about, with local shops, but also churches, schools and a major GP surgery. The needs of these community institutions have been overlooked. Our petition asked residents to show you support the introduction of a revised scheme that still prioritises residents but also accommodates the needs of our community institutions. And secondly, it asked the Council not to introduce the current scheme in any form but to instead cancel it and wait until an improved scheme can be introduced. An amazing 1,800 people signed the petition. The majority were residents. Many left detailed comments which we ask you to read. Our message to the Council is thank you for engaging with us, but be aware that this is a high stakes issue and the community is looking at you to do everything you can to ensure that parking controls address the needs of the whole community. We urge you to use every tool at your disposal to achieve a genuinely successful outcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Guy, any factual questions?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Andrew, and I will welcome receiving the petition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Moss?
Thank you for the statement of petition, but no factual questions.
Councillor Hughes?
Andrew, thank you for your statements. Would you happen to know if the Council is still working on rolling out the Permit app that would allow institutions such as St Bart's to book visitors for large volume events such as funerals and weddings?
I think it's still on the table. I don't know if where exactly that is. We've had good communication from a lady called Catherine, who's leading that. But at the moment, the current parking provision doesn't accommodate, for instance, a wedding of 250 people or our regular Sunday services where there would be 200 people.
Councillor Warren?
No factual questions, thank you.
Councillor Ross?
No factual questions, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Malcolm Baldwin?
Evening. We are facing serious ongoing challenges, both as a city and as individual neighbourhoods. The challenges are not all the same, but some remain serious and need immediate and perhaps more effective action and delivery. Over the last week at Cabinet, at the most recent policy scrutiny panel, and at a recent forum, I heard the point alluded to that we need to find additional ways to listen. What have we all been doing over the last 4 years if we have not been listening? What have you all been doing over the last 4 years if you have not been listening? Most importantly, what were voters doing on May the 4th if they were not listening to your various parties' manifesto pledges and they made their choices? Determining the achievements of an administration, its council, its executive, should not be a one-off examination every 4 years, but a process of continual assessment. You will always have elements of the electorate who think you are not consulting enough, not consulting meaningfully enough, or indeed consulting too much. For there is always such a thing as consultation fatigue. So let's get moving with real and effective delivery on the key issues. We know the problems. But unless we have more actual action, we will never get ahead of the curve on any of them. A few deliberately random examples. The regeneration of our high streets. How are we going to correct and manage the importance of retail versus hospitality interests? That balance needs correcting, not least because the answer has major implications for the impact and cost to the upkeep and sustainability of our public realm. The battle against the impact of climate change on our city is now about mitigation, not about eradication. Are we moving fast enough? Are we conscious of the dangers of over-tourism on our city? What are we doing about ensuring we do not become merely a museum-cum-fun park? Year-round urban tourism is growing faster than any other type of vacations. Bath is a prime example of that trend, including and particularly the so-called Netflix effect. The toxic mixture of unmanaged tourist visitor footfall, rat running and speeding traffic, my own residents' association highlighted in the paper to Cabinet in 2021. This now ever-increasing problem in a significant heritage area like ours can be resolved by the sensitive introduction of a meaningful, livable neighbourhood. There are solutions, therefore. We just need to be more aspirational and self-confident to deliver and act on them. As a residents' association, we don't expect our council to do everything for us. Others shouldn't either. But we also expect to keep your feet in the fire on delivering your commitments, and we also expect you to keep the feet of the executive also in the fire to deliver those same commitments, effectively delivered and within a value for money context. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Guy, any factual questions?
Thank you, Madam Statement, but no factual questions.
Councillor Moss.
Thank you for the statement, but no factual questions.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, but no factual questions.
Councillor Warren.
No factual questions, thank you.
Councillor Ross.
Thank you, but no factual questions.
Thank you.
That was the last of our speakers. We're on to item 9 of the agenda, annual business items deferred from the AGM. Councillor Guy?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. This is, as you say, the business that's deferred from the AGM. I'd like to give a very large congratulations to both Liz and Grant on their election. I'm a firm believer if you're a hard-working councillor, you're a caring councillor, the electorate will reward you, and that is exactly what they've done. So a big congratulations, well done. That obviously, yeah, big round of applause right there. This means that a reallocation of committees, Chair. The Labour group will gain one place on the Climate Emergency Sustainability PDS panel. The paper also includes the allocation of political and administrative support staff. This is extremely vital so all groups can ensure that these meetings move smoothly and get the appropriate assistance. So that is an excellent addition as well. I therefore move the recommendations 2.1 to 2.4 as published.
Thank you. Councillor Moss?
More than happy to second this. It's clearly Liz and Grant coming back onto the council after their 6 weeks holiday between the first week in May and the 22nd of June. Good to see you back, and happy to go with the recommendations.
Thank you. I've not seen anybody indicate to speak on this item. All right. So can we move on to the vote?
Happy to move to the vote, Chair.
All those in favour? I think that's unanimous, but let's check with the votes. Any against? Abstentions? No, that's carried. Thank you. Item 10, report of independent remuneration panel. Okay, Councillor Guy.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I welcome the report from the Independent Remuneration Panel. A Cabinet Project Lead is a new role that I've created, Chair, building on the position of Cabinet Assistants, which has been part of the Council structure under the last two administrations. I would like to pay particular attention to paragraph 6.1, which states that elected representatives should be remunerated fairly for the duties that they undertake, and in doing so, they should encourage more diverse and broader spectrum of the community to enter public life. The administration has a massive agenda. It's been given to us by the voters, and we thank them immensely for that. There is a huge amount of work to be done, and these people are giving up their time to do that work. They are taking time away from work, taking time away from their career, taking time away from their family, and I again thank the Independent Remuneration Panel for putting this forward, and I therefore move recommendations 2.1 to 2.6.
Thank you. Councillor Sarah Warren?
Yes, I'm happy to support this report, which creates the properly remunerated role of Cabinet Project Lead. in my last 4 years as Cabinet member. It's sometimes been fascinating, illuminating, fast-moving, but sometimes the most frightening moments of my life. I've found my role utterly consuming, often completely overwhelming, undoubtedly more complex and time-intensive than any other job I've ever held, whilst paid significantly less in real terms than any of my previous jobs. Can you believe that the hourly rate of pay of Cabinet members barely scrapes the minimum wage? During my last 2 years in Cabinet, I benefited enormously from the support of Cabinet Assistant Councillor Matt McCabe and Cabinet Aide, former Councillor Alastair Singleton. Their support was invaluable, both in reducing my very substantial workload, but also sometimes providing moral support in a role that can sometimes feel lonely and confusing in the public eye, as we often are. Cabinet members take numerous important decisions affecting every resident of Bath and North East Somerset. If we're going to give of our best, we must be better supported, and appropriately remunerating Cabinet assistants will ensure that a wider variety of councillors can afford to take on these roles. I'm delighted that 4 members with highly relevant skill sets and backgrounds have stepped into these roles this year, and these posts may sometimes also provide a stepping stone for some to go on to full Cabinet roles in future, whilst playing a vital role day to day in Cabinet work. So it's really important that we formalise them. I'm pleased to support the recommendations in the report.
Thank you. Councillor Hughes?
Thank you. Now I have some questions regarding this. My first question is this report it? I mean, is this just a summary of a more detailed report? If it doesn't, it seems to lack some detail. It doesn't tell me, or at least I couldn't find anywhere, it tells me how many Cabinet leads we're looking to introduce. And it doesn't tell me whether that number is capped. It also doesn't say how they're going to be allocated, and what happens if all Cabinet members were to request a Cabinet lead. Would this number increase? It's also not sure how many hours we should be expecting to get from this. If we were employing an officer in a similar role, there would be clear detail of the working hours within the contract. I mean, many councillors put in huge amounts of hours within their basic allowance. I mean, I put in at least 20 hours a month just on the planning side. So where's the level for this? I mean, I'm not saying I want to get paid. I'm quite happy that the basic allowance covers that activity. The report also fails to identify where the additional funds are coming from. I mean, we heard at the budget not that long ago how we had to save millions of pounds. So I'm interested to know where the money's going to come to pay for this, and will this result in cuts, particularly job cuts elsewhere? Finally, my concern is that, I mean, Cabinet members are not necessarily formally qualified in the roles that they have taken. Therefore, I'm sure they need the support of fully qualified officers to be able to perform those jobs. So I'm unsure how adding another level of unqualified councillors within that will actually add a benefit. Perhaps looking at qualified officers would give us more a clear transparency and a more politically neutral support for these roles. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Moss?
Thank you. I mean, first of all, absolutely agree with the emphasis that Kevin just made on paragraph 6.1 about how important it is that elected representatives should be remunerated fairly for their duties. And that's within the context of 13 years of a government that has been demeaning councillors, that has stripped assets away from local councillors, and even not allowing councillors to contribute to pension schemes. So the underlying principle is that, yes, we should have elected representatives that are remunerated fairly. And I think it's clear that the majority of that remuneration is going to go into the executive and the cabinet, because clearly that's where the model that we use, where those decisions are made. But there has to be a balance of support for the scrutiny process. And I think it's a balance because it's important that you have a good, effective scrutiny, which is different from opposition in the sense, but a good, effective scrutiny in order to be questioning the executive and also looking at policy development. And my question about this proposal is that there is additional remuneration for project leads at the same time that that scrutiny vice chairs are no longer getting a special responsibility allowance. And the Labour Group isn't going to vote against this. I think we're probably going to abstain on this because we're don't have any argument with the principle, but we do have a question about balance and how there should be. I think that balance going towards scrutiny is not quite right.
Thank you. Councillor Blackburn?
Thank you, Chair. I just really want to highlight about transparency. This agenda item talks about the remuneration panel, but it isn't clear. We're actually asking to add over 10% to the basic councillor allowance budget for what appears to be 4 cabinet assistants, roles that have previously been done without expectation of pay. Whilst we say we're a listening council, I feel we're not being open and clear with our residents at a time of fiscal restraint about where these funds are coming from and what real improved service they can expect for this increased cost.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson?
Thank you, Chair. I would endorse much of what has already been said by Councillors Moss, Hughes and Blackburn. I think there's quite a big question here. But first, I think we should recognise that this is not the way to pay the mortgage to be a councillor. A few administrations ago, when I was singularly bored at the annual budget review, I was sat over there and there was a whole bank of Conservative businessmen over this side, and I did some calculations on what I estimated their salaries were, and I reckoned that for the hours they were spending in council and on committee, they were getting perhaps a quarter of what they might expect to earn in their day jobs. And I would think that actually is still probably true for quite a lot of people, that whether it's the basic wage or not that we're getting, we are not in it for the money. And I do wish when royalty comes round and shakes your hand when you're chair, they would recognise that we're volunteers too, as much as the project that they're looking at. However, we do also need a continuity and a delivery of projects. So the principle, as Councillor Moss says, is right. The question is whether this should be a political appointment, a way of beefing up the special allowances, or whether it should not be an officer job. And I would feel a great deal more comfortable with this proposal if this was going to be a professional, well-trained officer. Because at the end of the day, I think we should recognise that it's our officers, and dare I say, the planning team has just won a national award. It's the officers who get the job done. We want you to get the job done if you've got reasonable ideas, but there's got to be scrutiny and a proper context of where this work should come from.
Thank you. Councillor Tim Warren?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm a bit mixed with this, so I don't quite understand it. Maybe it's me being stupid, I don't know. But when Councillor was mentioning it, it sounded like it was a cabinet assistant role almost. And we, in fact, did have cabinet assistants in my time as leader. And they were paid for them from the group leader's budget, which we didn't take. And I wouldn't advise that because I've probably got more sympathy with Councillor Guy in this chamber than anybody else, having been there and done it. And as Councillor Jackson quite said, for quite a lot less than you earn in your day-to-day life, if I'm honest with you. We actually did have almost a lead with Councillor May actually sorted that out from the Cabinet PA. She took on half of that role. So I'm not quite sure whether this role really is the right one. I'm not sure whether it's a cabinet lead. Like the cabinet lead should surely be led by the cabinet member. Again, we had the PA at the time who took a lot of the work on, and she was great for that. And I see Councillor Murray saying actually he did a credit where Stu did a good job pointing out. So I'm not quite convinced where we go with this one, if I'm honest with you. So I'd quite like some explanation, the summing up, whether it is for a council lead or a cabinet assistant.
Thank you. That was the last person that's wanted to speak. Are there any others? No, Councillor Guy, would you like to sum up?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd quickly like to state that the 10% comment is completely inaccurate. It's not an increase in 10% of the SRA budget at all. It's I think £40,000 is far less. I think you're not referring to the overall SRA, are you? You're referring to the cabinet SRAs? Yeah. No. No. Well, that's not quite. That's not 10% at all now. So that's inaccurate. The PDS point, actually, I agree with that. I think that the role. I personally would like to see PDS strengthened. I think it's really important, and the people that give extra time on the PDS panels, some sort of remuneration should be looked at for that. So maybe that's a question that should go back to the independent remuneration panel next. I think that's a very good point and a very valid point. To go to Councillor Hughes's point, most of those questions are covered in the report, but I'm happy to chat to you afterwards to cover anything that you feel is not there. Finally, Councillor Warren's point there. So the cabinet assistant roles are picked by the cabinet members themselves to help them with their workload. So they're very similar to the roles that you had. However, in the last administration, they were being paid for out of the SRAs of those cabinet members. I went to the independent remuneration panel to ask them if that was correct. They come up with this idea. They feel that the time given, which is roughly about a day and a half to 2 days a week, should be worth the additional sum that they recommended. I've asked them on the basis that I would like to encourage people from different backgrounds to move towards being cabinet members, particularly of working age, and they thought that this remuneration would encourage people to do that. So that's why I'm happy to accept their recommendation. Thank you. Happy to move to the vote.
Thank you. We'll move on to the vote. All those in favour? Against? And abstentions?
Thank you. So that's carried.
Thank you, that's carried. Okay, item 11, appointment of member advocates. Again, actually, do you want to bring the other councillors back in?
Yeah, I think Jenny's just popped out. So.
Right, just wait a moment while the other councillors return. Thank you. Councillor Guy?
Thank you, Chair. We're just making sure that those councillors hadn't disappeared to Frome while they were outside. Okay. Thank you, Chair. Member advocates are a relatively new initiative of Baines. Taking on an advocate role gives councillors a hook to hang their hat when it comes to championing particular interests and causes or groups for residents. Their role is to make sure that issues or groups that they are championing is taken in consideration when policy is being developed and decisions are being made. Individual councillors put themselves forward for the themes particularly wanted to champion. I should stress that I'm more than happy as the year goes on to look at adding to said themes in a year's time, and I should also stress if a theme is missing from the said advocates list, that does not mean that it's not important to the council. I'm more than happy to look at other championing roles later on in the year. I therefore move recommendations 2.1 to 2.3 as published.
Thank you. Councillor Moss?
Happy to second. Could I just emphasise the what do they do, and asking that member advocates provide a brief description at the annual general meeting, a report back, because I think we have this report, we make this recommendation, and certainly in past years you do tend to wonder what happens, and it is useful to have a report back. And I think just for information, because there has been a discussion online in emails between councillors about who's taking on what role. And I think at one point Councillor Grant Johnson was going to be potentially the advocate for young people, but then he realised, looking around the chamber, that's anyone under 50, so he decided not to.
Finished. You finished. Thank you. I've not seen anybody indicate to speak on this item. Oh, sorry, Councillor Player.
I was a bit surprised that it was referred to as a relatively new setup. How long is new? Because I can remember this happening certainly in the last 12, 13 years. So how?
Yes. I'm happy to take that to wrap up at the end if there's no more questions.
No more questions? Oh, Councillor Jackson.
I've just discovered that there's a member champion, and I just wondered, I think I've got confused in my mind between member advocates and member champions. I wondered if we could just have a bit of clarification and where the lines would fall, and I would hope that actually all these member advocates would be working in a cross-party manner.
Councillor Guy, do you want to sum up and answer those points?
Yes, well, that would sum up with regards to the last point. I think they're the same thing. The name's just evolved. With regards to being relatively new, I was probably, I think it might have been 4 administrations ago. Councillor Crosley possibly brought it in. So I was referring to in the time span of this establishment and this building, probably. Yeah. Thank you. Happy to move to the vote, Chair.
Okay. All those in favour? Okay, that's unanimous, thank you. Okay, on to item 12, Corporate Strategy 2023 to 2027. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Chair. Well, this is the 10th meeting I presented Corporate Strategy to, so I think almost everyone in the room has heard me talk about it, but that's not going to stop me from talking about it again tonight. The Corporate Strategy is the framework for what the Council will deliver for residents over the next 4 years. It brings together what they've told us is important, what they voted for in the May election, and integrates this into the Council's plans and the way the Council makes decisions. Listening to residents and acting on their concerns is our commitment. We'll find new ways to reach residents, to find out their views and find out their priorities. Working with communities to identify their local priorities that people care about the most. An area working will ensure that the Council thinking is joined up and focused on those local communities. We'll continue to improve frontline services. Services had declined after a decade of central government cuts to local government, but after the last 4 years, or over the last 4 years, we've started to reverse those cuts with millions of extra invested in road repairs and cleaner streets as one example. We'll continue to improve these frontline services so we can all take pride in our area. We'll also continue to put climate at the heart of everything that we do and use an evidence-based approach to ensure that all of our decisions are helping us on that journey to net zero. So finally, I'd like to thank the residents of Bath and North East Somerset for trusting us and giving the Lib Dems a historic second term in control of the Council, and with an increased majority. We will repay that trust to you by listening to you and focusing on those issues that matter to you the most. I move the report.
Thank you. Councillor Sarah Warren.
Sure. This evening I'm proud to support this corporate strategy, the first time ever that an administration in Bath and North East Somerset has been entrusted by voters with a second term to really embed their policies. This will be an opportunity to double down on action on the climate and ecological emergencies declared over the last 4 years. This month, the world has repeatedly recorded the hottest day since records began, and it follows the UK's warmest year on record. Lord Deben, chair of the Committee on Climate Change, told the Prime Minister a few weeks ago that the UK has lost its clear global climate leadership and that game-changing interventions from the US and Europe, which will turbocharge growth of renewables, are leaving the UK behind. The situation also remains serious for nature. The Department for Environment, Farming and Rural Affairs published biodiversity indicators for the UK last December, showing declines since 2015 in biodiversity of marine life, of habitats and species of European importance, of wild birds, and of pollinating insects. Bearing in mind, of course, that the natural world provides our food, our clean air and water, and ultimately disposes of our waste. The same report also shows declining investment in biodiversity over the same period. It's in this context of an ambivalent UK government that has lost interest in developing net zero industries, backtracked on fossil fuel commitments, and whose progress the Climate Change Committee has criticised as too slow and lacking urgency, that it's beholden now on local government to show leadership. And this is what Bath and North East Somerset's corporate strategy aims to do for the next 4 years. We are in no doubt that we will be delayed and stymied at times by lack of government support. For instance, by restrictive national planning rules, by government prevarication around support for making homes energy efficient, by a profit-led bus industry, by an inadequate electricity grid, by transport ministers actively undermining our efforts to enable walking, wheeling and cycling, and by government's failure to control airport expansion, to mention just a few. Nevertheless, I am proud that our latest corporate strategy shows a clear determination that Bath and North East Somerset Council will continue to do all within our power to provide the support to enable our community to be carbon neutral and nature positive by 2030. Over the next 4 years, we will further embed these values into all of our decision-making, which will be made in the context both of an understanding of the environmental limits of our planet and overlaid on a social and economic foundation in line with the principles of donut economics. So I'm delighted to second the recommendation this evening.
Thank you. Can I call on PDS Chair, Councillor Moss?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dave, for the presentation. And yes, it's the third time I've heard it. And Will as well came to the PDS panel to give the presentation. And the PDS panel welcomed the report, and there were a number of comments. There were a number of comments, and one particular theme was about the potential impact of the cost of living crisis on the way that we deliver services and the effect on our communities. And I'll give a couple of examples that have actually cropped up since the PDS. One was, I understand there was a meeting of the trustees of village halls across North East Somerset. And they were reporting that weekend events, such as birthdays, weddings, parties, which are important income generators for those halls, those are starting to tail off. Very clearly, people are watching the pennies, understandably. And last week I met with some of the professionals from the Healthy Living Centre down in Radstock, as a regular meeting we have. And they were saying that the GPs are reporting an increasing number of people coming to see the GPs who are having health problems, particularly related to debt and finance. And there's a separate discussion about debt advice. But very clearly, we're seeing a cost of living crisis that is starting to bite with local residents, and those local residents will need support. But clearly, that's going to put increasing pressure on our services. And of course, a corporate strategy looks at internally what resources we have and what ability we have to cope with challenges. horizon scanning, for want of a better way of putting it, about what's going to happen over the next few years. It also should be looking at the support we can expect from national government when it comes to working with local government to face a crisis, and I can see eyebrows raising across the room at that particular statement. But also our ability as an organisation to cope with unexpected events. What I always say, we need a department for unforeseen consequences. And I have to say on that, of course, we have had an unforeseen consequence in the last few years, and that was the COVID crisis. And it's important to say that the way that our officer team and the way that everybody dealt with that is exemplary and something we should be proud of as an authority. But of course, internally, we can deal with what we have. We can deal with the resources and the levers that we have as a local authority. But I'll move on to the external support that we can expect. Will, Kevin and myself recently went to the Local Government Association conference down in Bournemouth. As exciting as it sounds. But usually what happens there, I've been to a few, it's the opportunity for government ministers to come and talk to local government about the current issues, current plans, and how that government locally and nationally can work together to deal with that. And I have to say, it was more akin to tumbleweed going down Bournemouth High Street than it ever was about any constructive discussion. To hear Michael Gove talking about, oh, aren't things terrible, as if he just walked into post and hadn't been there for 13 years, was an extraordinary speech. So I think certainly one of our problems as a local council is going to be, as a local authority, is a corporate plan with a central government that doesn't appear to care, have any interest or have any idea about the crisis that we're facing. Having said all that, because of course I'm shouldn't really be political, as Kevin pointed out, at Cabinet when it comes to corporate scrutiny. But thank you for the officer team for putting this together, and clearly scrutiny and opposition will be about challenging and watching how the administration puts this plan into practice. Thank you.
Thank you. I've not seen anybody indicate they want to speak. Oh, sorry, Councillor Treby.
Thank you, Chair. Great to hear in the strategy about the good jobs and the skills to thrive. I think that's hugely important for Bath both now and in its future. When can we expect to see further detail on those strategy items, please, either here in Council or in the corporate PDS?
Councillor Guy will pick that up in his summing up. Is there any other councillors wishing to speak? Sorry, Councillor Mansell.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Mansell, Radstock. Going back to the Councillor Guy's comment about inclusion and diversity, looking at item 7.1, it says that the strategy is reinforced by the equality impact assessment that's been developed in conjunction with the strategy, and this is there to help meet our statutory duties under the Equality Act, which clearly is very welcome. And can I ask that this be added to the report, because it hasn't been included in the list of attachments? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I think that's an extremely important point, particularly because there's a sentence that's sort of hanging in the air on page 38 of the papers. We will invest in prevention across all services to tackle inequalities and improve local areas, focusing on prevention. Prevention of what? If that were tied into the equalities report, that would be very helpful. People in Westfield and Radstock are forever saying, well, they wouldn't allow that to happen in Bath. And there's a general pervading feeling that in North East Somerset we're not getting as good a deal as people do in Bath. Now that may or may not be true, but it would be nice to have a little bit of clarity on this one, and that in North East Somerset we might actually get our bus services back, because restoring the buses which have been cut would do more to restore the mental health of the residents, even if they didn't vote Lib Dem, than anything else I can think of. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tim Warren.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Appreciate all the work that's gone into this. I know it's not easy, and you can only work with what you have. But my one word of warning would be the unintended circumstances. We had some people tonight that came and spoke. The one guy from the church that, due to the council policy, they can't park outside the church anymore. And the lady that ran the DIY shop, she was concerned about her business in the future and going forward. So I just think we have to be aware of these people, because they pay council tax, they pay business rates the same as the rest of us, and people like that, they keep the towns and cities and countryside going. So I think we just need to be a bit aware sometimes of the unintended consequences. Thank you.
Thank you. No further speakers? No? Councillor Guys wants to sum up?
I think it's Councillor Wood, Chair. That's right.
Sorry, Councillor Wood.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Councillor Sarah Warren for seconding the motion, and Councillor Moss for representing PDS panel very accurately, particularly talking around the cost of living crisis. It was noted at the PDS panel the commitment that was made, as Councillor Jackson identified, to tackle inequalities and improve local areas. And I had a look at what the Council had done to help with the cost of living crisis in 2002. So it's all presented quite neatly on the Council website. £2.2 million in support for local residents from the welfare support team. Financial support for debt, accommodation and food advice to 5,000 households. £1 million worth of free school meals provided to 4,000 children. And there's quite a long list of these, and I'm sure there will be for 2023 as well. And this continues to provide the framework for that work to happen. Councillor Treby mentioned the skills strategy, so I'll link him up with a relevant cabinet member to talk about the future of that strategy. Councillor Mansell mentioned the equalities impact assessment, so I'll pick that up and have a look at that. It looks like there's an omission potentially there. Councillor Jackson asked investment in prevention of services. So conventionally in the council, that usually refers to children's services, adult services, prevention being better. But actually it applies across all services, from the way that we prevent the roads from deteriorating, prevent litter from accumulating and fly tipping. So the principle of prevention applies everywhere. And Councillor Tim Warren mentioned awareness of unintended consequences. Absolutely right. And that's why listening is really emphasised in the corporate strategy. The more we listen and the more we engage, the fewer unintended consequences there'll be. There will always be some. There will absolutely always be some. But the more we listen, the more we engage, the more that can be minimised. So I think that probably covers everything, and happy to move from there.
Thank you. We'll move to the vote. All those in favour? Okay, thank you. Item 13, Friendship Agreement with Alexandria. Councillor Guy?
Thank you, Chair. This is genuinely really good news, and I'd just like to formally put on record, Chair, my personal thanks to Councillor Dando for chairing the Friends of Alexandria group, the Friends of Alexandria organisation in general. Paul Dowling, Rachel Sean, Zenia Shiko and Mary McNair have all played a fabulous role in getting where we are today. I'd like to stress this is a friendship agreement and not a formal twinning. The people of Baines have generally done an exceptional job up to this point. We've supplied them with generators that have kept schools, nurseries, children's hospital heated during the winter. The thanks that has been given by the people that work in the hospitals, people that work in those schools, and the Mayor himself is the emotion that they pour out when they speak to me is I cannot explain it. They are genuinely so very grateful, and they feel that they are not alone and abandoned in the face of Putin's aggression. And I'd like to pass that a massive thanks on to yourselves. Currently, the help has not stopped. An ambulance is being sourced to go to the Children's Hospital as we speak. Most ambulances were taken by the military for the front line. Most working age men have left the administration of the authority to go to the front line. So not only have they taken on tens of thousands of refugees in that area, they are doing it with an administration which is stripped of most of its working men. So again, I cannot, it is very difficult for me to express their thanks and gratitude. I was meant to be signing this officially with the Mayor on Friday. He has been called to a meeting in Kiev about the military situation in his area. That is how severe it is. We all see at the moment that it's the Ukrainians that are on the advance. However, this has just seemed to annoy the Russians, and they are throwing missiles at civilian targets all over the region. And it is causing huge infrastructure problems for him and his citizens. So once again, I am very, very honoured to move this on behalf of all of us in this council and on behalf of everybody in Baines. And I want to stress this paper will not end here. This is something, when the war ends, we need to encourage our local businesses, our local economy to go over there, our arts and our culture, to not leave Alexandria when the war ends. I think this is a friendship which will last a very long time in the hearts of ourselves and of the people of Alexandria. So I'm happy to move recommendations 2.3. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh yes, sorry, I should officially say, I therefore move recommendations 2.1 to 2.3 as published, with a small change, which is to remove the words on the 25th of July 2023.
Thank you. Councillor Dunday?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It gives me great pleasure to second this proposal and to echo the thanks that the leader gave. And I think we should all pause and reflect that it's now 17 months since Russia illegally invaded Ukraine. Every night, what my colleagues and friends describe to me is Russians' murder theatre starts when they start lobbing hundreds of missiles and Shahed drones into populated areas. This is sheer terror. This is attacks on civilian populations. We can't do a lot about that sitting in this room, other than as individuals donate, support, give friendship to those people who are affected. And as the leader says, it is all over Ukraine. There are not really any safe areas here. My friends described to me being woken up at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning by the sound of drones and missiles, getting up the following day to see the impact of air defence having brought those missiles down, but the debris destroying buildings. The Russians have a penchant for attacking medical facilities. I saw yesterday that 62 ambulances have been destroyed during the latest attacks, because that stops the individuals, that stops communities from protecting themselves and giving themselves medical aid. So there are things that we can do and support. But this agreement is about what happens next more than it is about the war. This agreement is about our community, our council, extending the hand of friendship, solidarity and cooperation to the community of Alexandria, saying that we're not just in it for the war, however long that takes. We are in it for the peace, for the recovery, for the rebuilding of your nation and your state, and to enable us to also welcome you into Bath and North East Somerset, not just as refugees. And we should again acknowledge the fantastic job that communities here have done in hosting refugees, taking them into their homes, giving them jobs, giving them support. But also after the war, we should be going to them and taking advantage of their cultural opportunities, their education opportunities. Victory is coming, but we're in it for the long haul. Slava Ukraini.
Thank you. Councillor Romero?
Thank you. I'm very pleased that this council has agreed to this friendship link with the city and region of Alexandria in Ukraine. This follows statements made last year to Cabinet and full council by a Ukrainian living in our region, Ms. Zhenya Shikol. I don't think it has been mentioned yet, so I'm going to first acknowledge the work that Councillor Dando did behind the scenes, which led to Ms. Shikol making those statements last year, and so kick-starting this agreement. I'd also like to thank him and Councillor Malloy and Councillor Wright in drawing up the friendship agreement before us now. I would also like to thank my friend Zhenya Shikol for her continued efforts in raising funds for Alexandria. First, for those much-needed generators and for medical supplies, and most recently, as mentioned by the leader, for a van for the transportation of disabled people in Alexandria. It may or may not be appropriate to mention this now, but this fund is still alive, and I will send you a link to this if you ask. Bath Welcomes Refugees is another organisation which has been hugely instrumental in supporting Ukrainian families settling here in Bath and North East Somerset, as well as refugees from other countries such as Afghanistan and Syria. If you weren't in this chamber, you may well be at a one-night-only exhibition which is raising funds which will be ring-fenced by Bath Welcomes Refugees for Ukrainian refugees. Luckily, this exhibition will be available online after tonight, so please let me know if you'd like the QR code for this information. Finally, I'd like to echo Councillor Dando's words, thanking our communities as well for all the help and support that they have given our Ukrainian guests in these very, very troubling times.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? No? Councillor Guys wants to sum up?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank everyone who's just spoken, and I'm more than happy to move to the vote.
Thank you. All those in favour? Okay, unanimous. Thank you. Item 14, Treasury Management Outturn Report 22-23. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. I think Councillor Wood said he had 7 goes at the corporate strategy. I think this is only my 4th go at this one. So I hope you're not too bored of it yet. But just to provide some context for new members who perhaps aren't familiar with the Council's annual reporting cycle, this is it's an information report on Treasury management performance for the last year in line with the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy (CIPFA) Code of Practice, which requires the Council to approve an annual Treasury management report within 6 months of the end of the financial year. So a backward-looking report reporting on financial year 22-23. Treasury management is obviously a vital part of the Council's activity, and whilst it can seem dry, sound and successful Treasury management is the bedrock on which our finances are built. In a world where there are councils going bust, regardless of their political colour, of the administration running them, I think the main point that can be drawn from this report is that in this council we have a prudent and well-managed approach to public money. In a very volatile economic environment, the report covers the last financial year, remember, when we started with base rates at 0.75%, went through the Truss Kwarteng debacle and finished the financial year with base rates at 4.25% and inflation still out of control. So in a very volatile economic environment, this report shows that we are a very well-advised council and that we're making sound financial decisions. We're not over-leveraged, our borrowing rates are perfectly sensible. Indeed, we made no new borrowing at all in the financial year and we repaid some. So we finished the financial year with less borrowing than we started. And on the investment side, we're managing to make prudent investments whilst also adhering to the principles of our climate emergency declaration by placing 5 million of our capital in environmental, social and governance funds. In fact, I note those 2 ESG funds were our best performing long-term investments. And we made nearly 1 million more interest than we budgeted for over the year. The performance against Treasury management indicators in the areas of borrowing, credit risk, liquidity, interest rate exposure, loan maturity structure and investment limits are all favourable. In short, this is a financially well-managed council which, whilst remaining ambitious, doesn't take unnecessary risks with public money. I commend the officers on both the report and their hard work during the year on managing those finances, and I move the recommendations in 2.1 and 2.2 of the report.
Thank you. Councillor Moss?
Yes, thank you. More than happy to second this and thank Mark and the officers for the work that has gone into this. And I think the point's made. There are a number of councils up and down the country that would give their eye teeth for a Treasury Management report that's looking like this. But it is important to stress some of the language within the report, quite correct language, when we talk about difficult years, talk about markets being extremely volatile and remaining so, and the drivers of high inflation, high interest rates and continuing uncertainty. Well, let's hope that next year's report is as positive as this. I'm sure it will be. And I think to echo the point that Mark made, that sometimes the driest reports are the most important to this council and the running of this council. Happy to second.
Councillor Guy?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to express my personal thanks to Mark and his team. They work ridiculously hard. I would echo Councillor Moss's view of the LGA, listening to the Government Minister. Mark and I went to listen to him in the House of Commons this week, and again, he was completely void of any help that he was going to give to councils of any political colour up and down the country. So the amount of effort that goes in what is on paper, or looks on paper a very boring report, is an extremely important report. So my personal thanks go out to Mark and the officers.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Are there any other speakers? No.
Chair, in Councillor Ball's defence, I think he's expecting a grandson, I think, so that may have been granddaughter even, sorry.
Okay, Councillor Elliott, want to sum up?
Nothing further to add. Thanks to colleagues for their comments. Move to vote.
Thank you. All those in favour? Yeah, that looks unanimous. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, item 15, another exciting one. Avon Pension Fund Terms of Reference. Councillor Crossley?
Well, how right you are, Madam Chair. This really is the most exciting paper of the evening, and I'm glad you recognise that. Pensions are a serious matter. Council, this paper is to prove the terms of reference for the committee and the investment panel, and include a small change to the quorum rules to ensure that the quorum cannot be with Baines members alone or vice versa. Paragraph 3.3 is the main point. But while I've got you here, I know there's a lot of people with pensions, so with the Chair's approval, I'd just like to take a few seconds, the opportunity to give you a brief update on the pension fund itself in the light of all the recent global uncertainties which we've heard in other debates. We completed a triennial actuarial valuation during the year which showed the fund to be in robust health with 96% funding level. The improved funding position also allowed us to achieve stability in employer contributions. We have also been active in responsible investing, and our equity investment portfolio is 20% more carbon efficient than the wider market. However, we do need to be more on climate, and phase 2 of the investment review focuses us on more ambitious climate targets. This review will be completed before the end of 23-24 financial year, and we are encouraging active involvement from the scheme members, trade unions, councillors and other stakeholders, and I look forward to your involvement in this debate over the autumn. And I really hope you come and contribute to that debate about the future of how the pension fund does it over the next 5 years, because the only question you ever ask me about is the climate change on our pensions. So I expect to see you all there at the working parties. The committee has approved a plan to digitalise the service over 23-25, and work also continues in preparation for planned legislative changes such as the McLeod age discrimination remedy. I'd like to thank all the staff of Avon Pension Fund for the excellent work they do for us all, and I'd like to thank the Chair for allowing me a couple of minutes to speak on something that wasn't strictly in the paper.
Thank you. Councillor Dando?
Thanks, Chair. It may not be the most interesting report on the agenda, but it is vitally important to our staff and their futures, because these are their pensions that we're looking after. So I'm very happy to second the report and to concur with Councillor Crossley's summation of the really good work that the Pension Fund is doing and the excellent plans that we have to move this forward. Avon Pension Fund is widely recognised as one of the most active in this area and with the best developed plans, and we have ambitions to go further still. So happy to second the paper, Chair.
Thank you. I've not seen anybody indicate to speak on this. So Councillor Crossley would you like to sum up? Okay, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, item 16, the Standards Committee Annual Report. Councillor Simon?
Thank you, Chair. It may be slightly surprising to some members to see a new member of the Council taking on the role of co-chair, as we're going to now be described, of the Standards Committee. But I chaired the Standards Committee in my previous authority and therefore come with some form in this matter. I'm very pleased that in this authority there is an arrangement by which the bulk of the meeting is chaired by an independent member, that's Dr. Axel Palmer. So our thanks go to him for putting himself forward for that role. My only role is to administer any vote that may need to be taken as the statutory chair. When I was involved in standards work previously, there was a standards board for England, and it used to run a conference for standards committees, and I went along to one of these, and it was explained to me that the real problems on standards committee are often not the principal authority, but the parish councils. And we all saw the difficulties that one Cheshire authority got itself into during lockdown. So I'm actually very pleased that in this annual report, neither the principal authority nor any of the parish councils generated any matters which needed the intervention of the Standards Committee or any adverse findings. The annual report sets out all the details, but there's nothing to which I need to draw the Council's attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Doherty?
I have nothing to add, but I'm very happy to second.
Thank you. Nobody? Councillor Jackson.
Well, I'd like to commend the committee on the work that they've done and the officers who've supported them, and especially to praise the independent volunteer members. It's not an easy job, I know, because I was on the committee for 6 years before they moved the goalposts, and I decided I'd rather play cricket and came off the committee. And now I see they've changed the rules again. Those of us who've been thumping around the doorsteps or in other ways trying to get our candidates elected will know just how many times we're told, oh, you're all in it together, you're all as bad as each other. And of course we've got a by-election which going on in a place not very far from here, which rather gives merit to this argument. So I think it's very important we have a robust report like this that we can point people to. But I was wondering if the committee or the officers could consider having a leaflet or something on the website that puts it in very simple language, because it so often comes up that somebody feels they've got a grievance, but actually it was something that the person who is a councillor and should uphold the council standards on the one hand was doing in his back garden when he was off duty or she was off duty. There's a considerable amount of confusion about what is actionable and what is not, what is a criminal matter now, which it wasn't in my 6 years, and so on. So if we could have a nice, simple guide to the Standards Committee produced off the back of this report, I think that would go quite a long way, especially as a certain village in the Chew Valley had one of the most stupendous and long-running complaints I ever came across that, you have to really get down to the grassroots to explain. But I commend it. I think this is very good, the work that's being done, and I commend you all.
Thank you. Councillor Wood?
I'd just like to commend a very clear presentation of all the information in the report, and I think the case tracker is particularly useful at providing a level of detail that the rest of the report wouldn't provide, so grateful for that.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? No? Councillor Simon, do you want to sum up?
Thank you for these comments. And Councillor Jackson, I hadn't looked at exactly what it says on the website about what if you have a dispute about the council, about a councillor. I agree it's important that people should be able to find, with not too many clicks, how they can proceed. And perhaps the monitoring officer can bring forward a note to the next meeting of the committee as part of his overall reporting on how this is dealt with on the council website. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll put this to the vote. All those in favour? Yes. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 17, knife crime motion from the Liberal Democrat Group. Before we actually move the motion, I'd like to ask all members to stand for a minute's silence in light of the recent knife attacks that have taken place in the area, please. Thank you. Councillor May?
Chair, thank you very much. It's with sadness that we make this proposal this evening with this motion. The problem of knife crime has been brought very much to the forefront by 3 recent tragic events locally. As a new Cabinet Member for Children's Services, I was highly impressed at the way the police, council officers and other key partners work together, including covering areas outside of Baines. As councillors, we know that everything is being done to protect the community, hence the comprehensive motion this evening. All sorts of professional procedures are appropriate following serious crime to look at causes, mental health issues, compassion for young people and protection measures. The recent deaths of young people in our area have led to much concern about the role of knives in our community. To address any concerns that there may be more than can be done and actions we might need to promote, there are therefore 2 main issues we are highlighting this evening, in addition to the correct and proper actions by the public bodies and the voluntary sector, which hopefully address the wider community concerns arising from these cases. First, the PDS committee will look in detail at the issues of knife crime and what can be done to reduce future risks. I look forward to hearing from Councillor Romero on this topic shortly. And secondly, I'm proposing that at a suitable time, all of the excellent organisations meet and listen to families and children's concerns. We do not want to see a culture shift where young people feel they need to protect themselves, and even more importantly, I've seen and heard of real fears of local children and their parents about leaving home to engage in normal activities of young life. It's important we thank our own staff and our partners for their dedication, and as councillors we must be sensitive to our community's concern. I'm going to welcome the amendment that's going to be proposed by the Labour group, and I wish to move this motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Doherty.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be second this motion, and like Councillor May, I too am sad that it's necessary that this motion has come before us this evening, both as a councillor and also as the mother of 2 teenage sons. My boys tell me it's evident from their conversations with friends and also from what they see on social media that their peers feel frightened when out and about and feel they need to protect themselves with knives. Unfortunately, it's this perception of fear that is a self-perpetuating, vicious cycle which leads to more young people feeling unsafe when they go out, which also in turn leads to them consider carrying a knife with them while they're out and about. While this doesn't just happen in Baines, and while the rates of violent crime in Baines are thankfully relatively low, we ignore these concerns of our young people and their families at our peril. It is our job to talk to these young people and understand their reasons for why they feel unsafe and why they feel the need to protect themselves with weapons, and most importantly, it's our job to allay those fears and work with them to help them feel confident and safe when they're out with their friends. I look forward to working on this issue as a member of the PDS panel, where I feel the panel can do some really good work in this area, along with the Council and other agencies, to look at best practice and to come up with some real solid recommendations leading to actions with tangible benefits for our whole community. This motion highlights the breadth of response from the emergency services, the Council, the voluntary and education sectors and beyond, and it also demonstrates our commitment as a Council to working with other agencies to tackle this issue. Happy to second.
Thank you. Before I move on to any speakers, I'd just like to remind members not to refer to any recent activities that have happened, as there are live ongoing investigations. Thank you. Councillor Hardman.
I would like to... Oh, sorry. Excuse me. I thought you wanted to speak first. I'd like to put forward an amendment because the Labour Group felt this was a very good resolution, a very good motion in many ways. It's good to highlight what's happening and also to meet the concerns of our residents who are very concerned about knife crime. But we felt it needed a little bit more teeth, and I would like to add to point 16 to identify other successful projects to reduce knife crime and draw up an action plan for Baines.
Thank you. Councillor Mayor, are you happy to accept?
Chair, as I said, I very much welcome this additional amendment, and it is relevant, I think, to the motion this evening, so thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Or is Councillor Ball ahead of me? So, having had this amendment passed, I'd like to speak very much in favour of this motion because it signals our Council's concerns about knife crime, particularly in the light of the 3 recent sad bereavements that we've talked about. It's good to note in Statement 8 that there is a recognition that we as a Council are part of a violence reduction strategy, where we need to have in place a serious violence reduction strategy by January 2024, and with it, knife crime is a key element. It's also good to note that youth engagement is a key factor in what is a very complex issue, and as in Statement 11, recognising the importance of education in all of this. I welcome the proposal that an investigation into knife crime will come before our PDS panel, as Councillor Michelle O'Donnell has recently said. Maybe we can go further and urge the government to ban the sale of the most dangerous types of knives, as well as increasing penalties both for selling to underage buyers and for anyone carrying a knife with the intention of endangering life. And so I do believe the amendment, which is to identify other successful projects to reduce knife crime and draw up an action plan for Baines, would really fit in with this amendment. We need to have something concrete to go forward with, and I look forward to, in our PDS panel, in discussing this further and drawing up an action plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Romero.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to add my thanks to all those who have been working and are supporting and have been supporting those families and young people affected by the tragic events of the last year. As chair of the Children and Adults Policy Development and Scrutiny Panel, I thought it would be helpful to let you all know a bit more detail about what is envisaged within this inquiry that the panel is up to undertake, and to clear up perhaps some misconceptions which I am aware have been circulating. This panel is not setting up as a separate group, nor does it intend to duplicate the work of the Violence Reduction Unit. The panel will be looking at the violence reduction strategy at its next meeting and will be seeking contributions to augment this work from a wide variety of agencies and partner agencies, as well as resident and parent groups, to help build up a full and comprehensive picture of all the services which work together and the impact that this has locally and indeed nationally. Because of the sensitivities around this issue, we do not plan to hold these evidence-gathering sessions in public session, and pre-Labour's amendment, the intention already was to seek out other successful projects from across the country which reduce knife crime. When this inquiry is concluded, it is expected that there will be recommendations for Bath and North East Somerset Council through Cabinet and other partners, so we can collectively help prevent these tragedies becoming more commonplace. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ball?
Yes, thank you. I agree with what's been said previously. Those who know me know I brought up their own children and brought up 3 grandchildren now, and they're out in the communities in the evenings. They're out about in the city centre of Bath, and we worry about them all the time being there. But in certain locations, they're told never carry knives. We make sure they haven't got them. I think all parents, grandparents, etc., have to look at their own siblings to make sure they're not carrying when they leave home, to explain to them to keep themselves safe at night, to stay away from areas where there may be difficulties incurred. We spend a fortune on taxis getting ours home at night, rather than walk the streets or catch the buses late at night. It's a shame we're in this situation in society, but I think as parents, and not necessarily at this chamber, anyone listening tonight, the message is never carry a knife. It's not worth it. Make sure your siblings, anybody associated who doesn't carry them. I had to speak to a youth a few weeks ago who came to my house and told me he was carrying a knife. I took it off of him. He went away quite happily. Those knives were disposed of quite safely. So I think even in those circumstances where we're talking to members of our community and children and young impressionable people, make sure that message goes home very clearly.
Thank you. Councillor Fox?
Thank you, Chair. After reading this motion, I contacted our police constable, Ross Cudd, in the Chew Valley, and he happily reported that we've had no knife crime in the last 18 months in our ward. However, we have had a cluster of antisocial behaviour, and thankfully one of our parishes, Stowe Sutton, has had the positive action to pay a youth service called Young Bristol as a weekly intervention. This has been highly effective. Sheer Stew, who is the lead on this project, gave me a statement earlier this week describing how prominent knife crime is with the young people he works with, and it's a topic that often comes up, and how him informing and his wider team informing them can be really the antidote to working with these people. I think in light of the corporate strategy we have discussed today, we have to commit to prevention. And I think in light of also what Councillor May has said, that we don't want this culture of knife crime to take hold in our community. Can we please, can the Council please commit to listening to partner agencies and the people that actually work directly with this problem, and not simply condemning here without fully understanding the complex issue?
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? No. Councillor May, do you want to sum up on this?
Thank you, Chair. I think the very responsible comments that have been made this evening are much appreciated. We brought forward the motion quite clearly because of the concerns that we've seen within the community, and those are real concerns. But in terms of, you look at statistics elsewhere, those concerns are around the incidents that have happened rather than necessarily a great demand in the area. So I think there is an issue there that we do need to make sure that we do reassure and we don't get that culture where knives are actually used by people just to feel safe. We've got to allay those fears. We've got, Liz, you mentioned about the serious violence strategy. Quite clearly, that's now a duty on local authorities. So that's something that we're going to be working on. And I think it's absolutely right for Dina Romeo to say quite clearly we've got to work with the officers, with all the groups, so that we're not just going off and doing our own thing. We've got to be able to listen and work things through. And I think the fact that I've heard from other people about that they have to run their children into various events or they pay for the taxis, that shows the level of concern that there is in the community. And I think getting communities to work together like has just been announced, I think it's, I heard just literally yesterday, the Youth Justice Partnership working jointly with the police, understanding how things can actually be improved as time goes on. So our role as councillors is not to go off and do our own thing, but to actually listen, respond and try and actually find ways we can help in the future, which is why I was so pleased to pick up the issue about learning from other people. So I move the motion, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Move to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. On to item 18, questions and statements from councillors. We had one question and the answer to that has been circulated. So can I call Councillor Saini for your statement, please?
Thank you, Chair. Esteemed Council members, I want to address a pressing concern affecting not only our ward's residents, but also our entire community. It is a matter of great importance that demands our immediate attention and collective action. I am referring to the recent decision made by the Great Western Railway operating company to start a consultation on closing the ticket office in our area. This proposal, justified by the increasing popularity of digital ticketing, raises serious concern about the accessibility and inclusivity of our transportation services. While digital ticketing offers convenience to many, we must recognize that a significant portion of our community still relies on staff ticket office. The data indicates that approximately 12% of our residents prefer and depend on the assistance provided at these ticket offices. The 12% figure refers to those purchasing tickets. The staff ticket offices are far more than just an alternate way to transact a purchase. We must consider the impact on various vulnerable groups within our community. Our elderly residents, persons with disabilities, individuals with limited literacy and IT skills, and those with visual impairments heavily depend on the support and the guidance of staffed offices. By closing these ticket offices, we essentially deny them their right to access transportation services, hindering their independence and participation in our society. Moreover, let us remember that Bath is a renowned tourist destination, attracting visitors from around the globe. The ticket offices are vital in welcoming and assisting tourists, ensuring their seamless travel experience. If we allow these ticket offices to close, we not only inconvenience our visitors, but also risk damaging our local economy and prosperity of our businesses. In the light of these grave concerns, I call upon council members of Baines to take action. We must make our voices heard and actively engage in the ongoing consultation process until 25th of July 2023. Let us reach out to the broader section of our wards, mobilize our communities, and ensure that every resident can express their concerns regarding the closure of ticket offices by responding to the consultation. Additionally, I request the Council to write into the consultation expressing our objection.
Closing staff ticket offices without adequate alternatives is not a step forward but a step backwards in our journey towards an inclusive society. Let us champion the cause of accessibility, inclusivity and equal opportunity for all. Thank you for your attention, and let us work together to protect and enhance the services that our residents deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Guy, any factual questions?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Encore. I don't think anybody in the room would disagree with what you just said. Would you welcome myself writing to the Minister expressing the views that you just put to the Chamber?
Yes, that would be great. Thank you.
Councillor Moss, any factual questions?
Yes, thanks for the statement, Anka. And I guess it's a question to you, but it's really a question to everyone in this room and a question to GWR. Has anyone ever seen an empty ticket office? The idea that they're not used or not useful is, sorry, I'm answering the question, is daft.
Thank you. Councillor Hughes, any factual questions?
Sorry, no factual question.
Councillor Warren?
No factual questions, thank you.
Councillor Ross, any factual questions?
No factual questions, but very well put. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Malloy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My reason for making this statement is to raise awareness about a growing health and environmental problem. A resident recently contacted me about single-use e-cigarettes or vapes and asked if their use here in Bath and North East Somerset is much of an issue. From my regular litter picking around Weston, I can certainly say that I'm finding more and more discarded vapes. Last weekend I collected 6 in less than an hour. First, the definition. According to the NHS website, an e-cigarette is a device that allows you to inhale nicotine in a vapour rather than smoke. E-cigarettes do not burn tobacco and do not produce tar or carbon dioxide. Using an e-cigarette can help you manage your nicotine cravings. So that's the quote. So although e-cigarettes were originally developed as an aid to help smokers break the habit, the trend now seems to be that younger people and even children are starting to vape without ever having smoked cigarettes. E-cigarette manufacturers appear to be marketing their products to appeal to this demographic by using colourful packaging and offering a range of fruity and bubblegum flavours. Vaping is harming the health of our young people, and this alone is reason enough to be concerned. The other reason for concern is, of course, the environmental harm caused by e-cigarettes, particularly by single-use vapes. Last week, the local government association published an article about disposable e-cigarettes, which included the shocking fact that 1.3 million are used every week, making an annual total of 67.5 million. Apart from all the plastic involved, single-use vapes have integrated batteries, which makes recycling them impossible. Some of the minerals contained in these batteries, lithium for example, are highly flammable, and this has led to fires breaking out in waste collection lorries and at recycling centres. I should add that, as far as I know, nothing serious has happened to date here in Baines. The local government association representing councils in England and Wales has now called for a ban on the sale and manufacture of single-use vapes by 2024. The government is coming under increasing pressure to resolve this growing problem from both the health and environmental points of view. And the government is apparently also considering introducing compulsory licensing for retailers of all types of e-cigarettes in England, which would bring the law into line with that of Scotland. So, personally, I support the local government association in calling for a ban on the sale and manufacture of single-use vapes for both health and environmental reasons. If Bath and North East Somerset Council has not already expressly done so, I would urge the leading members and officers to back the local government association ban. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Guy, any factual questions?
Thank you, Chair. I fully support Ruth's statement, but I'll pass my factual question over to Councillor May.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the passion of what you've just put forward. Can I ask a question? The Council has a health and wellbeing board that reports through to the Integrated Care Partnership, and I wonder whether you'd be interested in us putting an item on there to actually move this through the system a bit more effectively rather than just saying, well done.
Yes, no, that would be very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Discuss it.
Councillor Moss.
Thanks for the statement, Ruth, but no factual questions.
Councillor Hughes.
Yes, thank you for the statement, but no factual questions.
Councillor Warren.
And likewise, thank you, but no factual questions.
Councillor Ross.
Thanks for the statement. No factual question. Thank you.
Thank you. And that actually brings the meeting to a close. Thank you very much.